Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today I want to go through some of the changes and developments that Stomaria has gone through over the last few months. Now, while I could have probably made videos for each of the topics I'm about to cover in this particular video, because of time constraints, my own lack of free time, I did want to try to condense all of these topics into a single video and to just go over some of the changes and the ongoing developments and initiatives, I suppose, that Stomaria is currently engaged in. So without dragging out this sort of introduction longer than it needs to, let's get started. So as many of our followers, our supporters, our citizens will already know, we have begun introducing 50-gram silver bars into circulation within the Empire. And these take the form of 50 stater bars, which means that there's 50 grams of silver, so they have 50 staters. Now, these are to be introduced alongside the 5 stater coins, 5-gram silver coins that have been in circulation since 2021. And their purpose is to be a more cost-effective way for our supporters, for our citizens, to be able to accumulate cheap silver. And the premiums of these, because they're so much lower, makes it far more affordable for Stomaria itself to acquire these. Now, unlike the coins that we already have in circulation, these are plain bars, which are hand-stamped by Stomarian citizens. They're not made by a mint as such. They're not refined, I suppose, by a mint is what I meant to say. The actual bars themselves, they are produced by a company, by a refinery, by a mint, and they are sent to us, and we simply get a hand stamp, which we've already had designed, and we stamp it on there, and then we enter them into circulation. So not only are the premiums far smaller and makes more cost effective for us to be able to acquire more silver than we would otherwise be able to do, but it also means that there is an element of direct involvement from Stomarian citizens in the actual production of these bars, because we are hand stamping them ourselves. And that's a very exciting prospect. It's sort of moving closer and closer towards this idea where we can do this ourselves. Now, bar actually owning a silver mine and getting all of the refinery equipment and all the rest of it and doing it ourselves, we're never going to be able to accumulate and utilize silver completely independent of all other external entities, much as is the case for much of the world, because of the locations of the silver mines, for instance. But the point stands that we are having a more direct involvement in the production of our own money. And this is a very exciting prospect for us, because a lot of people don't seem to fully appreciate the history behind sound money, behind commodity money, and why we do it. Because the original coins, the original staters, were created some 2,500 years ago, and today we are emulating them. We are doing exactly the same thing as they were doing 2,500 years ago, and that should tell you something about the longevity and the usefulness of sound money, of commodity money like gold and silver. And I just wanted to reiterate the point and highlight the point further, that this is a very important development for Stomaria and for the wider empire, that this stater is going to be helping to act as a medium of exchange for in terms of trade and commerce and enterprise between the individuals and the nations and the heads of those nations. And I am looking forward to introducing new designs for these status bars. We already have the Stomarian name and emblem and the 50 status, pretty straightforward, pretty standard, simple stamp for Stomaria itself, but we also want to do one for Wayward and one for Vesta and for all the other member states and observer states within the Empire. And because of the low cost of being able to accumulate these stamps, we're going to be able to do this relatively quickly. And leading on from that point, we are going to be introducing new status bars on a more regular basis. So my plan for the time being is to introduce about 250 grams of silver status bars, so that would be 5 bars at 50 grams each, every month. And this should be more than sufficient to, at least initially, inject into the community in return for goods and services. In fact, the first use of the Stomarian status bar, I hope in the next week or two, we'll be able to advertise, because I do have some plans for particular services that I want someone to do for us, and I am hoping that they're going to be able to accept Stomarian status bars in exchange for that. In fact, I'm relatively confident that they will. But I'll have more details on that a little bit further down the line. But again, this is just an update to say that the status bars are being produced, they are being manufactured, we do have some involvement in them, it's going to be a more regular basis, we're going to introduce more designs, and we are going to be utilising them in a very real and meaningful way, as they were intended, as a form of money, as a medium of exchange. And I have made videos about the importance of sound money against fiat currency in the past. I recommend you go and look those up. But again, just for those that aren't aware, we have these bars now in circulation, and it is a terrific milestone for Stomaria to be able to provide even cheaper silver to our community. Something else that we've had in place for about 3 months now is a change in the minimum contributions that supporters have to make to Stomaria in order to become and remain a citizen of Stomaria. Now, before I get into the reasons as to why we've increased this rate from £1 to £5, I will explain that in more detail in just a moment, but the reason that we have this in place at all, why we insist on supporters contributing financially on a monthly basis to Stomaria in order to become a citizen, is because we want to ensure that every citizen of Stomaria, regardless of whether they play a larger role within our community, is nevertheless adding value to the community at all times. And on a monthly basis, we want them to be able to renew that pledge. Because we could, for instance, insist on an annual contribution or even a one-time fee, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee on a more regular basis that we have the amount of support that we think we have and that we claim that we have. Going through Patreon and insisting that this minimum contribution is made in order to identify as a Stomarian citizen, we can be assured that well, I say it can be assured, it is a relative assurance that the people that are contributing financially are still interested in Stomaria, are looking at what we are doing, are interested in seeing us succeed, and more importantly, that they haven't just simply fallen by the wayside once they've gotten through the door and been added to an Excel spreadsheet or whatever else. They are actively supporting Stomaria, even if they're not physically going out there and supporting us or commenting on our posts or whatever else. They are nevertheless contributing financially to Stomaria, to the community, to the project, to the nation that we are building, and that is very important. Now, the actual reason that we've increased the minimum threshold is because the amount that citizens get used to be virtually nothing, in the sense that they would contribute £1 a month because they supported what we were doing. We didn't offer them anything in return for that. However, we have since introduced an initiative in which each Stomarian citizen is allocated a 1 square meter plot of land, and on that land we put a raised bed and we grow herbs, flowers, vegetables, fruits, whatever they want, and we grow the produce there, and we either utilize it ourselves or sell it on, and any proceeds are going to go towards the Stomarian citizen in question. That at least is the plan. This is a very new initiative, and that's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. And obviously the reason that we do this, as opposed to having each citizen simply come to Stomarian territory and look after the plot themselves, is because Stomarian citizens are incredibly spread out. And even the ones that reside in the British Isles don't reside anywhere near the actual location of the plot, and so we have to manage it on their behalf. That is a little bit all by the by, but the point is that there are now more perks to becoming involved in Stomaria, not just the fact that there's 1 square meter plot of land allocated to them, but also the ability to acquire silver at spot price, perhaps the cheapest silver in the world, is another bonus. The ability to utilize the land that we are gradually accumulating as a space for markets, for stores, in case people want to develop businesses, in case they want to be quite entrepreneurial, in case they want to take a chance and engage in some sort of commerce or some sort of exchange with other people, or learn a new skill or trade. We want to be able to accommodate as many citizens as we can and utilize the land in a productive way. And again, this all just feeds into the reason why we've had to increase the contributions, because not only does it ensure that citizens actually gain an actual benefit, they can actually be more directly involved in the activities within Stomaria, but it also is a cost to us. We have to, purchase the raised beds, get the soil and the compost. We have to purchase the seeds or the plants or the bulbs, and we have to actually manage them and look after them and protect them. And if anything goes wrong, then we have to obviously rectify that ourselves. And there's a lot of labour involved, as well as the actual cost of the materials itself. And so that's why we've had to increase that rate. Now, going forward, what this has presented is an interesting problem, because we obviously have various tiers now of citizens, in the sense that some are contributing £1 a month, some are contributing £2.50 a month, some are contributing £5 a month, and some are even contributing more than that. And this is creating a very unusual sort of tiered system where they're all technically Stomarian citizens, but they get different levels of there's different benefits to each tier, in the sense that a £1 a month tier does not assure you, for instance, a plot, because the amount of funds that we have to allocate to creating and establishing a plot is far more than £1 a month, which is why we charge £5 a month for those that want it. And because I don't really want a 2-tier system or more of citizenship, what we're going to do going forward is that when the rates do change for whatever reason, because of inflation, because £5 a month isn't worth as much as it used to be, or whatever else, and in 5 or 10 years' time we have to increase it to £6 or £7 or £10 or whatever it's going to be, in line with inflation, then that is going to be the new baseline for citizenship. And those that don't up the rates, or even lower the rates, very unlikely to lower the rates the way fiat currency systems work. But if we change the rate, we expect Stomarian citizens to up the rate to that base level, and any that don't meet that threshold, we won't be able to count as Stomarian citizens. Now, again, the reason I want to do this is to make sure that there is no confusion as to what constitutes a Stomarian citizen. A Stomarian citizen is one that contributes the minimum threshold that we are advertising at the time, and we will obviously make people aware of this. But something I do want to make clear, that even though it is the minimum threshold that we expect citizens to make going forward, the ones that have contributed £1 a month and are currently on £1 a month or £2.50 a month or whatever it is below £5, they will remain Stomarian citizens. Because I have effectively moved the goalposts, and I don't want people who have already joined in the past assuming that they're going to be paying that as a Stomarian citizen forevermore. I want to make sure that they are treated fairly, in the sense that this is going to be applied for future citizens, not current citizens. So all the citizens of the Empire that are currently paying less than the baseline, which is £5, they are fine. They are still Stomarian citizens, they are still recognised as Stomarian citizens. Another development, another change to Stomaria, and more specifically to the Empire, is the way that the Empire is structured, the terms that we use and the definitions that we apply to those terms. In that Stomaria, as many of our supporters, followers and citizens will know, consists of provinces, protectorates, associated states and observer states. So a province is private freehold land that is directly owned by the imperial family and that is governed by a member of the imperial family or the Stomarian nobility. A protectorate is private freehold land that is directly owned by the imperial family, but it is governed by the highest authority of another nation, of another community, of another entity. A associated state is a nation or a community or an entity that has freely decided to join Stomaria. They consist of private freehold land, or they own private freehold land. We have no direct involvement in the ownership of that land, but they have nevertheless decided to join the empire. And the observer state is a nation or a community that doesn't have private freehold land to its name, but nevertheless wants to form a part of the community, of the trade network, of the empire building process that we are currently engaged in. Now, trying to simplify this is something that's been on my mind for a little while. And we have sort of amalgamated protectorates and associated states, and indeed observer states, and just refer to them collectively as member states. However, I want to make this a slightly more official, permanent fixture to some degree or another. So what we're going to be doing is, even though provinces are going to remain the same, it is Stomarian territory. It is directly owned by the imperial family and is governed by a member of the imperial family or Stomarian nobility. It is a purely Stomarian territory. However, instead of having an associated state and a protectorate, we are simply going to have a member state. So a member state effectively is an associated state. It is going to be consisting of private freehold land that is owned and governed by the highest authority of another nation, of another community. So the Kingdom of Wayward would no longer be an associated state, it would simply be a member state. But again, because they already refer to themselves as a member state, it really doesn't make any impact, doesn't have any change on the outlook on that front. The only other change, I suppose, is going to be to the observer state. We are going to have member states and observer states, but whereas previously observer states referred to a nation or a community that didn't have private freehold land, now an observer state is going to consist of any nation or community that doesn't meet at least some of the requirements to become what you might call a full member. Now, in terms of the actual practicality of it, observer states have as much involvement and interaction and engagement with the rest of the Stomarian community as a member state. There's no distinction on that front. There's never been a distinction on that front since we, came up with these terms, these definitions, and the way that we're governed, in the sense that an observer state previously had all the rights of an associated state or a protectorate, and vice versa. But now, the only difference is going to be that the observer state, as well as having all the rights and benefits as a member state, is just not going to be relating to private freehold land. So they might have private freehold land, for instance, but they might have a longevity issue. So they might have the community, they might have the land, their ideology might be sound, it might tick all of the boxes, but they were only founded, 3 weeks ago. And so for that reason, we would put them on an observer state tier, if you like, and then we would wait to see how long they lasted and what happened during that time before we admitted them full membership. And I hesitate to use the word full membership because as an observer state, you still have access to everything that a member state has. We just want to make the distinction clear, because the alternative to that is to have member states or nothing at all. So you can either become a member state of this Empire of Stomaria, or you are completely out of the system. Whereas I think having the observer state is still going to be hugely beneficial for the same original reasons, because it does not exclude people because they're just missing one or two criteria that we are looking for a full member. So for those that are interested in becoming a part of the Empire of Stomaria in that way, as an observer state or as a member state, then I would advise going onto our website and trying to find out more information about that, because there's far more on the website than I can explain here. But to give you a very, very brief rundown, when we are talking about the criteria, what we are looking for in a nation, in a community, it really revolves around questions of longevity, of maturity, of consistency, of ideology, of activity, of the community, of the territory. These are all things that we consider when applicants approach us, and I must get 2 or 3 a week that we have to turn down for one reason or another. And the best way to find out whether or not you are going to be a suitable fit for the Empire, if you are thinking about applying, is to look at our website, is to read it in depth and to see if you are going to be suitable to become a part of our community. We do not try to exclude anyone deliberately, but at the end of the day, the unofficial mantra of the Empire of Stomaria is what benefit is there to us, and vice versa. If there is no mutual benefit, if we don't think we can offer you something, and we don't think you can offer us anything, and we don't think you're going to stand the test of time, if we think you're going to be too chaotic, your government's going to change, your ideology is going to flip-flop every other week, if your flag's going to be changing every so often, none of these are signs that we're going to have a long, stable relationship with you. And so we just want to make sure that we get the right people involved in our community. And even for all the fail-safes that we've had in the past, we have still nevertheless suffered the same issues that a lot of other aspirant nations or communities or simply micronations have suffered in the past, which is partners or those affiliated with us simply dying, simply going inactive, dissolving, or falling by the wayside without so much as a whimper. And it's been incredibly frustrating for us because we obviously have all of these fail-safes in place, but it's still very difficult to find the right people. And over time, our criteria has only ever gotten stricter. Our standards have already increased quite a lot over the last few months in particular to prevent any sort of mishaps from taking place in the future. They will happen, I don't doubt that for a minute, but we want to try to mitigate the amount of nations and communities joining the Empire of Stomaria and then simply falling by the wayside and dying for one reason or another. And having the criteria that we have in place in order for people to join us initially is just one way in which we try to mitigate that. And leading on from this, when it comes to formal relations or foreign relations with other nations, other communities, other groups, we are going to be opening our doors up in a far more cooperative manner, in the sense that the Empire of Stomaria itself is nevertheless expansive, in the sense that we are looking to expand, incorporate more nations or the communities into the Empire as observer states or member states, but we're also looking for external trade partners. Because of the terms and conditions that we have when it comes to becoming a part of Stomaria's empire, there are those out there that would rather not adhere to those terms and conditions, which is absolutely fine. We don't expect everyone to do so, it's not for everyone. However, we are nevertheless interested in reviewing and supporting where we can those that are looking to do something similar to ourselves. And we have maybe 4 or 5 on our own radar which will be approaching or have already approached both in the British Isles and abroad in terms of supporting their monetary systems through the setting aside of Stomarian status bars for their own use. Or trade is going to be the most prominent aspect of this foreign relation initiative, if you like, in terms of building closer ties with external entities. And I suppose just trying to support these sorts of groups where we can is something that we're very interested in, because this is something that we've always been interested in. This is why we have the Empire set up the way we do. This is why people do apply to become member states or observer states of the Empire. We get no shortage of those on a weekly basis, those wanting to become a part of the Empire. They just don't meet the necessary criteria. And a lot of the times they don't even meet the criteria as an external affiliate. But nevertheless, we are keeping our eyes out for suitable candidates for alliances, effectively, between Stomaria, between the Empire of Stomaria, and those nations that are out there, which we do think will add benefit to the Empire, and if we think the Empire can add some benefit to them, because when there is mutual benefit, that is what we are looking for. If we don't think we can offer them anything, or vice versa, it's not something we will pursue, because there's no tangible reason for us to do so. We're a very practical and pragmatic empire in the sense that we won't do something, we won't engage in an activity if there's no real reason for doing so, if there's no benefit to doing so. So with that in mind, if you are a representative of a nation or a community that you think would potentially benefit from some kind of formal affiliation with the Empire of Stomaria, then please feel free to let us know, and we will review your nation, your community, and we'll see if we can work something out. There's no guarantee that we will, only because, as I say, we get applications all the time from people as opposed to communities or nations that want to become formally affiliated with Stomaria in some way, because obviously we do have a very a large social media presence. We're relatively well known as these sorts of projects go, and outside of the sort of the mainstream micronations of the world, we are probably one of the first entities that people will come across when they're researching this kind of topic. So, as I say, if you are interested in some sort of cooperation, or you think that your nation or your community might be interested in some sort of cooperation, just let us know. The worst we're going to say is no, so you'll be no worse off than you are now, but it saves us having to go through every possible nation or community out there in trying to ascertain as to whether or not they're going to be a suitable fit. We do know of some, as I say, and we are going to be reaching out to those before too long. But with all of that said, if you did want to become a part of the Stomarian community, then please feel free to become a citizen through our Patreon campaign, the link of which I shall leave in the description below as always. But otherwise, if you did enjoy this video, then please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.